Hello, hello. Welcome, one and all. I hope you're all having a lovely day as I'm joining you again from the office. We do have a great show for you all today. We're talking on early MVP frontrunners heading into the online league. Who currently sits, I believe, at the top of the MVP conversation? Like I said, heading into the online league, and which one we kind of expect to be good, kind of moving forward. Along with that, we also do have an interview with the Tatch, which will be happening here later on in just a little bit. Of course, all that and more ahead on this episode of Off the Break. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Off the Break, presented by Jack the Box. Again, we find ourselves, like I said, sadly, not in the beautiful Frontier Communication Studio. It is sad. It's nice to kind of be at home, but at the same time, I don't really truly feel at home in the studio. It's warm. It's nice. Unfortunately, we have to be here for right now, but I know it's just right around the corner. I feel like every day that the time goes by, it's just another day of which we can maybe make things a little more normal again. But that's kind of what I'm hoping, podcasts like this, shows like this can maybe do for the community, is to kind of add that normalcy back into life again, which I feel like is what we all kind of need, at least for right now. But let's go and talk about our first kind of subject of this particular episode. This is something for me that is a huge discussion to have right now. We're kind of in that preparation of the online league. The expectations really for the online league are very high. We still have yet to currently, as of this very moment, I think we're all kind of on that waiting period of like, is the online league 4-man announcement going to be happening? I've made a number of different tweets kind of giving my predictions on when the announcement should come. I'm thinking it's today. I was thinking it was yesterday. I'm thinking it should be happening anytime now, but we'll just have to see. But in the meantime, I think it's a very interesting aspect because we can still talk about rosters, kind of different predictions heading into the online league. And I'm going to talk about a few different teams, and one in particular that I believe has the most pressure coming into the online league as it stands. I currently have two main teams right now, and kind of throughout this entire show, which I know we've kind of translated this to being more interactive, where live we're kind of ready to kind of hear your guys' opinions on this one as well. Feel free. At the same time of me kind of giving my opinions on these particular discussions, I want to hear what you guys have to say as well. If you agree or have a similar comment, I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to hear kind of your opinions on maybe which team in your eyes has the most pressure coming into the online league. First one I'm going to go and start off with is, in fact, the Paris Legion. This is a team that I was pretty familiar with actually during the kind of off season, if you will, a roster that I was pretty well associated with, a team that I actually worked with a little bit in terms of kind of getting this roster together. And this is a team that kind of since launch weekend has obviously gotten some hype, but it's kind of started to die down a little bit. Obviously, they weren't at the Los Angeles homestand, so things have kind of started to slow up a little bit more here and there. But the Paris Legion currently sits with 50 points in fifth place in the overall standings. Obviously, a roster that's looked pretty solid kind of throughout the season. They're a team that you really can't count out when it comes down to a number of different series. But the big thing for me that is going to be big for the Paris Legion coming into the online league is leadership. I don't know. I feel like for me, this particular group, as of right now, is a team that needs to be aware of leadership for the future because we've talked about it whenever I was kind of in the midst of trying to put this team together in certain ways. The biggest problem that I had was okay, we got to be aware where's the leadership coming from. This needs to be an aspect that has to be fine tuned into this team. It's a young group. You have a lot of guys who maybe haven't teamed with each other before, coming in from all kinds of different regions. It is important to have that one unifying piece that can pretty much bring everybody together. And one thing that I have watched, and going back, kind of watching a few of their VODs, even in preparation for today, in a few of their series, especially when they're facing off against teams that maybe aren't the best in the world, have kind of been, rather, the issues that I've seen are kind of the basics. It's kind of basic things that you think should already be kind of fine tuned. There was a particular series on Gunrunner Hardpoint when they're facing off against Toronto, one of the last times they played against them. In the issue that the Paris Legion had was just rotating. It was very, very basic kind of run of the mill type things. And in Search and Destroy, there's been a lot of talk about how their ability to get first bloods is amazing, yet they can't walk away with rounds. And I feel like this is something for me that is going to be a continuous, I guess, kind of bullet point for the future with this group is how are they going to translate to the online league? How are they going to translate? I know they're all going to be together. I'm pretty sure they're all based in the Los Angeles area. They were moved there. So I think they're going to have that sense of unity, but being online in that atmosphere, I'm interested. I really am. And I think they do hold some pressure because the expectations are high, right? The expectations for this group are high, especially because we have seen them in some ways at their best, right? They took 2 hard points off the freaking Chicago Huntsmen. It was impressive. It was very, very eye-opening that hey, you cannot count out the Paris Legion. But since that time, kind of overall, it has kind of been a little bit slower, right? Facing off against multiple teams. But the only rosters that they have beaten kind of since that time period are teams like Toronto, and they beat New York. I think they beat Toronto twice and New York once. That's not the same level of which we kind of I feel like when we talk about this team's highlights, I mean, you could list off a number of different things, a number of different, high moments for this group. But for recently, it hasn't really been like that. And that's the thing that I am interested with about Paris is this is a team that I think has the pressure to live up to the expectations to the same level of hype that they had at the start of the year. And this is a team that I wasn't expecting to make roster changes. Obviously, they don't. And I think that was probably a good move for them in the long terms of things. But I think this is a team that still needs to put it all together and is still going to struggle in certain ways of putting it together because you do have certain rosters that are starting to improve. You have teams that are making roster changes. I know it's still early, but the subliners, they make the move, it looks like, with Mac Meltz, which we'll be talking with Attach a little bit more later on in the show about that. The Los Angeles Guerrillas are making moves. We've seen Toronto Ultra. Looney looks to be now kind of on their academy team or on Toronto Black, I believe is what they're calling it. The Seattle Surge obviously make the move with Pander. You have Optic Gaming LA, who have never looked stronger. The Ravens right now are kind of in kind of quarrels of like, hey, are we bringing in Nasty? The Ravens at the same time, or rather, I already brought up the Ravens are with Nasty. Florida, obviously, they make the kind of move with no longer having Prestini on the team. We talked about that a lot last week. The ability of bringing in someone like Pharaoh, pretty much what 80 to 90% of the teams that exist below them are making moves. And that is something that you have to be aware of if you are Paris. Is it time for us to make a move? Or if we start to struggle versus those teams, is that because of the moves that they have made, or is it because of us not being able to keep up with them? And that I think for me is going to be a big deal for Paris moving forward. I love the story. Obviously, I think the team is great. I like the way that, no pun intended, they were kind of put together. But I do feel like as if they do have some pressure moving forward into the online league. I'm excited to see what they can do because I feel like there is a lot that can be there. But I think the leadership, the transition to online, I think is going to be pretty interesting. Now, I want to talk before I kind of mention what I believe to be the team with the most pressure. I want to go over a few different rosters that I think that have been kind of brought up in this conversation that don't really need to be here. The first one, okay, we're just kind of going a little bit of a list here. Atlanta Phase. Do we really have to even cover this? I mean, literally, this is something that should not even be a conversation. The Atlanta Phase, there is no pressure on this team, right? They lost one series on LAN. That is the opposite of pressure, right? They don't feel the pressure of being in the online league. They're like, hey, we know that we're the top dog. If we were to lose, hey, it could be because of online. And I think this is a team that realistically actually needed to lose coming into the online league because of the expectations. They're young. The biggest thing that I heard when I talked with Rambo Ray, he said, hey, the biggest thing that teams are going to have to adapt to when it comes to online is taking these games serious, is to realize that the online league is now your only territory to move forward. And that's something that I think is going to be super interesting to watch for a lot of these groups. And I think for Atlanta Phase, they're a young, mature team, but they're still young. I think they have the coaching staff, but I don't think it's really a big deal with the Atlanta Phase whatsoever. Chicago Huntsmen, I don't really know. I don't think there's any pressure on this team. And when we talk about pressure, I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch how certain teams translate. I wouldn't say there's really a whole lot of pressure on the Chicago Huntsmen. Obviously, they don't have the greatest kind of end to LAN play, but even still, then I don't feel as if there's that same level of like, oh goodness, what's going to happen type thing. I don't feel that with Chicago. Now, this is the ultimate outlier that a lot of people, when you talk about just online in general, the number one team that comes up, Dallas Empire. Let me tell you why I think that there is no pressure on Dallas. They've won, right? Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, all of them have won. Where is the pressure then of a team coming into an online league to prove that they have like there's nothing left in this situation of online. There's nothing really for them to prove, right? If anything, because of all of the memes and all of the talk about how great Dallas has looked online, where's the pressure with that? Right? If everyone already thinks we're going to be a great online team, what are we trying to live up to the expectations of the community to say, hey, we're a great online team? No, there's no pressure there. I think it's the opposite. I don't think that Dallas has any pressure coming into the online league. I think this is a team that is very, very consistent, a team that has looked fantastic in both online as well as LAN. And so I don't really know if there's any pressure whatsoever coming on this team. And Kingdom Soldier, by the way, shout out, brought up an excellent point in the chat. Dallas has the highest average placing in the league. There should be no pressure there. I don't know. I don't get that whatsoever. Another team, Minnesota Rocker. Now, the only thing that I think could factor into Minnesota Rocker kind of coming into this conversation is their ability from LAN to online to translate. And for those that remember the start of the year, the start of the season, the big talk for a lot of different teams coming into launch weekend was, hey, watch out for Minnesota. Watch out for the Rocker. They've looked great in scrims, despite the roster on paper, the team that maybe you think that they're going to look like. They look pretty good. I think Crowder was one of those people who said, "Man, they're playing us pretty hard in scrims." And so, based off of that, all of these guys are in the same location, which is going to be great for them. Unless connection is the ultimate problem, which all like I said, all these guys are probably going to be in the same in the headquarters, if you will, in Minnesota. I don't really see the pressure with these guys. I think all of the top teams don't really have anything to prove. I think it'd be different if we were going from an online league to a LAN league, because then there are expectations, but you're kind of digressing in this situation. So I feel as if the best teams don't really have a whole lot to prove. I think it's more of the opposite. Teams that are kind of in the run or kind of in the middle, teams that are maybe at the bottom that were expected to be better. And on that topic, a team that many believe to be better was Seattle. And I know that I've hit on Seattle a lot. It's because of the expectations that people put on this team coming into the year. This is a roster, whether they know it or not, that I believe has, and for certain reasons, the most pressure coming into the online league. Now, let me give you a few reasons as for why. This is a team that made moves, right, coming into LA. They add Painter into the lineup. A few people thought, hey, maybe somewhat questionable. Obviously, it's one of their substitutes. It's not the perfect fit, but Painter played pretty well in LA. I personally thought wasn't enough. I didn't think it was enough. I thought we saw some improvements, but generally, I don't think that's the person that gets them over the edge. I don't think that Painter is the guy who could put them over the edge. Now, am I saying that he needs to be off of the team? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that I think that they need another piece. I don't think that they're going to reach what they want in order to make this happen. And the reason why I bring up Seattle in comparison to other teams, if you pull up the standings, if you look at them the way that they are, Seattle currently sits in ninth. Toronto, LAG, New York, just above them, Optic, London, Florida, Paris. These are teams that on paper, maybe outside of New York, that they should all be better than on paper. Coming into the year, there were multiple people, multiple analysts, multiple community members who said Seattle, that's a top 3 team. That is a roster with experience. That's a team that you want to watch. That is a team that does not need anything because they're a great unit together. And like I said, this was a roster that many people had in the top echelon because of the veterans that they have. Folks, they have 5 world championships combined on this team. 5. That is veteranship unlike any other. And when we go back to bringing on Enable into this team, you have veteran after veteran. You have a great coach in Nubsy. Like I said, this is a team that even still should be above, I think, that maybe if you're looking at the middle, kind of the middle of the pack, they should be above, right? They should be above 6 rather than below. They shouldn't be in this position. This is a team that should be better. And like I said, the reason why I bring this team up is not just because of the expectations they had coming into the season, because they still have those, but it's also because of what they could be. Because if you look at the losses that they suffered throughout the Call of Duty League, they've been close, right? They've not lost a ton of series in a dominant way. If you look at their heart points and you add them up, a majority of their losses are around the 250 to 220 margin. In the early stages of the launch weekend, they're going to game fives. They're constantly in round 11s. The dominations kind of play out the same way. Domination is their best mode. Imagine if the hard points or those round 11 victories were going their way. I mean, really. I mean, imagine if this team was closing out hard points at least half of the time, and they were walking away with a few of these round 11 search and destroys, or at least a little bit better in search and destroy. This team would be top five. No question about it. So the way that I look at Seattle is that this is a team that said, you know what, we're not making a move. We're pretty happy with the way that we are right now. We're pretty content with the way that we've played. We like the way that Pander played, which I thought Pander played well. But don't get me wrong. I think the one issue that Seattle really had, and based off the interviews that they were having a majority of the time, was about, hey, we need to improve in search and destroy. You know, you could argue whether or not it was enough of a sample size to kind of have that be proved. But I think that he does add a lot in search and destroy. But at this moment, like I said, this is a team that needs to pick it up. This is a team that has to pick it up. You have a roster of which there are so many talented players on this group. And I feel like when you have these particular players, these are winners. Right? These are guys who are winners in prior history. Karma, 3-time world champion. Octane, one of the best players in the entire CDL. I think at the very end of the year, he will be the best player in the CDL. Slacked, been around for the longest amount of times, always involved in grand finals. Apathy, a 2-time world champion, always involved in grand finals, especially toward the end of the year. All of these guys are winners, and they should be in that category already. And so I feel at this moment that Seattle has the most pressure because of a few different reasons. One, because they were expected to be better, and they were expected to be a top caliber team, and we still hold them to that. At the same time, they're also a team that decided to not make another roster change coming into the online league, at least not as of yet. Watched their scrims earlier today, still rocking with the same team that they had in LA. And for the future, right? For the future, this is a team that is expected to be better, a team that has the ability to be better. And I think with the roster, with the lack of roster changes, this is a group that I think has pressure coming into the online league. Now with kind of the pieces now in their corner, you're not worried about the LAN environment, if you will, which veterans shouldn't have to worry about that. But you're no longer worried about that atmosphere when it comes down to close games. This is a team that should improve in the online league. But if they don't, that's when problems can start to occur. That's where I see things right now at the moment. In terms of pressure with teams in the online league, I look at teams like Paris, I look at teams like Seattle. Like I said, when it comes to the top echelon, I don't see it. I don't see those teams having pressure on them, or at least for the right reasons, right? They're already top caliber rosters. The talk of the Dallas Empire, I don't think really makes a whole lot of sense because as what was a Kingdom Soldier mentioned in the chat, they're the most consistent team so far throughout the year, right? They've already won a championship. It'd be different if they hadn't. Be different if the losses or if they would have maybe taken a few more losses. I get that, right? I totally understand that point of view. But I think as of this moment, the top kind of 4 teams, if you will, the rosters that have already won, there isn't pressure on them, at least in the circumstances or the situations that we're talking about. I don't think that there is pressure in that way, at least as of right now. But I think the ball is in Seattle's court. I do. I have a lot of expectations for this team. And I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten the expectations that were given to them at the start of the season. And the way that they have lost games are close. Veterans losing close games shouldn't happen. Shouldn't be the case. They should be walking away with those games. That's just where I see things right now with Seattle, with Paris. But overall, I think Seattle does have the most pressure coming into the online league. Like I said, feel free to let me know your guys' thoughts as well. Let's go and move on to the next subject. Frontrunners for MVP. I'll be honest with you, folks. I did a lot of research on this. I spent pretty much, I don't know, a few hours really just kind of looking at the numbers, diving in, seeing the differences. And so today I want to give you guys my top 5 current front runners for MVP. And at the very end, I think I'm actually going to choose who I think is the current overall front runner for MVP. But these are the guys that I think have played so well at the start of the season. It is in some ways a mix of not just stats, but also team placement where they currently sit in the standings. I'm of the mindset when it comes down to the MVP conversation, you don't have to be on the best team to be the MVP. Does it help, especially in Call of Duty? You're darn right it does. Because your stats usually are better if your team is winning. It's just usually the way that it goes. So in my eyes, I'm kind of looking at stats, obviously. I'm looking at the way that they've played so far throughout the year, and I'm looking at the impact through multiple game modes, consistency, things like that for my current front runners. Like I said, feel free throughout the entirety of this segment to let me know in the chat. Let me know even if you are on or watching this later. If you're watching this on Spotify later down the line, if you're watching this on Apple Podcasts, by the way, welcome to you. But feel free to let us know. Get in the conversation. Join us on Twitter. Tweet at me at LandO. Let me know your thoughts on the current frontrunners for MVP, as well as our folks who are live right now. So like I said, let's go and dive into it. And in no specific order, the first one that I'm looking at is Wuskin. I tell you what, man, there's no real debating on this one. This guy has got to be in the early stages of the MVP conversation. And I think if you don't have him in your top 5, there's something wrong. I don't think we're looking at the right list if Wuskin doesn't exist here. Because like I said, he has looked excellent in every single event. I think there's rarely been a map where I've said, Wuskin could have played a little bit better here. Like I said, coming into the year, he wasn't even expected to be the second or third option for the London Royal Ravens, right? At least in my eyes, it was going to be Dylan, Scraps, Jared. I thought those were going to be the main 3. I thought ARs were going to be a problem for the London Royal Ravens, and it's been the opposite. Clearly London's best player as of right now, and I don't see that changing unless the meta were to absolutely turn on its head. He's looked incredible all year, and he is the reason why London are where they are right now in the standings. Let's take a look at a few stats. Overall KD for Wuskin right now, a 1.41. A 1.4 overall, which is best in the entire league, and it's not even close. Not even remotely close in terms of overall KD. Let's go game mode specific. Hardpoint, number 1 hardpoint KD with a 1.55. Like I said, best in the league. Again, not even close. Wuskin has a 1.55. The next player, a 1.30. Like, what even is that difference? Like, this guy is on an absolute another level when it comes down to hardpoint, which is arguably based by a lot of people as the most important game mode in Call of Duty Esports, as it sets the tone for everything. He's in hardpoint, only dying 18 times per game, which is actually staggering. Other ARs are kind of around the low to mid 20s. Major Maniac is close, but if you look at the differential in the way that they play, Wuskins is getting in way more engagements than Major Maniac. Oftentimes, Major Maniac can kind of rely more on the SMGs. Wuskin doesn't have that luxury, at least as consistently. The way that he's able to win his gunfights and stay alive is very impressive. Well, Wuskin isn't getting a lot of hill time. But he is getting in an unreal amount of engage success rate. Which shout out to EasyMac for pretty much providing all of these stats. If you guys haven't done so already, make sure to check him out. He's done an excellent job with doing this all year. But in terms of engaged success rate, meaning that he is winning over 60% of his fights, and if not, his teammates are finishing off those opponents 63% of the time. So I'm going to mention this stat a lot. So I'm going to make sure that we get this one kind of set in stone, make sure that it's clear. Wuskin is winning 60% of the team fights that he gets into. And if not, his teammates are trading those out and they're finishing off that kill 63% of the time. That's insane. So every time you face off against Wuskin, there is a 63% chance that you're not staying alive. Let's go and talk about Search and Destroy quickly. Now, S&D by no means has been his strong suit, which you have to take note of. A 1.07 Search and Destroy KD, not amazing, but traditionally SMGs and flexes are usually stronger in this mode than ARs, at least based off of stats and what we've seen so far throughout the year. But he's not playing bad, right? He's been excellent with the sniping. Obviously, I think the numbers, the overall highlights that this guy's been able to put up have been insane. He's been a very, very big problem for a lot of teams when it comes to search and destroy. We'll go and move over to Dom quickly because respawns, this is where Wiskin's territory is right now, man. I tell you what, a 1.33 domination KD, playing a slower role, right? He's kind of playing more on the slower end of things for main ARs. But that's kind of expected, right? In every engagement he's involved with, he or his teammates are picking up that one 63.1% of the time. So, like I said, in overall respawns, if you are facing off against Wiskin, you are either killing him or dying yourself, no matter what. You're dying no matter what. Even if you take him down, you are dying if you face off against Wiskin. Every time you look at him, every time you shoot at him, you're dying 63% of the time. Unbelievable. Unbelievable numbers. Wiskin, again, is the reason why London have been where they are. Like I said, they're kind of at that, they're literally the team that is pretty much 50% in everything. And I know right now they currently find themselves 7th in the standings, but they are the most 50-50 team. They can take you down in hardpoint. They can lose the search and destroy. They can beat you in the search and destroy. They can lose the hardpoint. I mean, literally across the board, they are straight 50-50. But those kind of, half of those games that do go their way, for me at least, are a majority of the reason accredited to Wiskin, who has played absolutely stellar throughout all portions of the year, and looking to see how he plays well online as well. Let's go and move forward. Next player, next front runner for MVP of our top 5. Number 2, Simp. In some aspects, Simp has been under the radar in comparison to the amount of noise that was around him in Black Ops 4, simply because, no pun intended, of how great his team has been collectively. There have been a lot of talks about this particular team of Atlanta FaZe, and Simp isn't always the main guy that gets brought up in terms of positives. Right? There's been a lot of talk about Priest. There's been a lot of talk, especially about Celium. And for good reason. Those guys are playing absolutely out of their minds, but people aren't realizing that Simp is actually making a great case for MVP. It's actually unbelievable if you really look at the numbers, which we'll get ready to talk about. But I actually put out a tweet earlier, and I wanted to kind of put out a feeler just to see which people were kind of on the same page with me when it came down to MVP predictions. Not a whole lot of people put Simp. In fact, a lot of people were putting his teammates before him. It's crazy. Overall KD for Simp this year as an SMG, not having an AR in his hands whatsoever, a 1.29 overall, which is incredible for SMGs. In fact, that's great for flexes, and that's actually very, very good for top ARs as well. Let's go and move forward in hardpoint. Holds a 1.22 overall, which is number 7 in the world right now. And again, for SMGs, it's fantastic. Even in comparisons to ARs, he's averaging around 52 engagements per map, getting 10 plus assists. So he's getting a double-double, if you will. And he's in and around the hill all the time. Very solid year at hardpoint so far. Let's go and move forward again. I know we talked about Wiskin a lot, but we need to kind of get through these. Search and Destroy, number 1 SMD KD at a 1.52, averaging a little over 7 kills per game in Search and Destroy, and the league average is around 6.4, still very good. He pretty often works around the bomb side. He's only dying on an average of 4.7 times per game, which is extremely, extremely low. Obviously, he's playing on an excellent, excellent Search and Destroy team. Again, another player who works so well with the sniper rifle in this game. Has looked fantastic when it comes down to this. Obviously, it's hard to highlight yourself when it comes in a Search and Destroy when you're on the Atlanta FaZe, but he's got the number 1 S&D KD. He's obviously looking like the best player in Search and Destroy on his team, which is full of S&D superstars, and he's got a 1.52, which is just a nice way to top it off. And in Domination, also playing very, very well, has a 1.34 Domination overall KD, which is number 2 in the league. Also, he is dying only 19.33 times per game, which is way lower than an SMG should be dying, right? Not only is he slaying, but he's also playing the OBJ whale as well. He's also sitting at number 6 in caps per game at 6.67. This guy is doing everything. I mean, literally, as an SMG, he's not dying that often. He's constantly on the objective. And he's putting up numbers that are rivaling ARs right now. It's actually insane. Simp as an SMG is winning by himself, no one included, 57.2% of his gunfights. Let me tell you something. 57.2. The average flex and SMG player is winning around 48% of their gunfights. Simp, 57.2. That is a 9% difference between Simp and all other SMGs and flexes in domination. Simp is somebody that you'd think after the year he had wouldn't be underrated in any way, but he's looking incredible this year despite the role that he finds himself in. In terms of KD, overall in the league, number 6 in hardpoint, number 1 in search and destroy, number 2 in domination. And I guarantee you, he is one of the only SMGs that sit among those lists. Let's move forward. I'm getting amped up here. we're getting a little bit amped up in these moments because the stats are unbelievable. It really is. Let's go move forward to my pick at the start of the year as the MVP once the year closes out, Octane. Like I said, this is a name that may be involving some debating, and I get that. Just because of where his team currently sits in the league. Talked about how they have some pressure at the moment when it comes down to things. But right now, I think Octane is still in this race because of just the overall insane progress and the insane ability of what he's doing around the map. As his team, like I said, currently sits 9th overall in the standings. It's hard to give the MVP something like that. You have to at least make playoffs in my eyes to even be remotely in that conversation. And if you are, you have to be putting up absurd stats. He's done that, at least for me, so far throughout the year. Overall KD for Octane so far is a 1.28. That's super solid, all things considered. In hardpoint, we got to chill out here. In hardpoint, Octane currently sits number 2 in overall KD with a 1.30. Now, to go along with that, he's also averaging around 27.7 engagements per game, which is definitely one of the faster AR numbers in the game, despite playing fast. He's only dying 21 times per game, which for an AR is unbelievably fantastic. But my favorite hardpoint stat, to go along with the fact that he's playing absurdly well in hardpoint, to go along with the fact that he's playing actually faster than a lot of other ARs out there and actually dying not all that often either, is the fact that he's also leading in hill time in the CDL. He's racking up an average of 88 seconds on average per game, and he's also winning a 56.5% of his engagements, which is high, especially for the pace that he's playing at. In my eyes, at the moment, there is not someone who is playing for their team better in every aspect than Octane is right now for Seattle, because he is playing faster as an AR. He's also not dying all that often, because you'd expect someone who's playing fast to die more often. He's not. He's also number 2 in overall KD in this particular game mode, while also racking up the most time. How often do you see somebody who is number 2 in the KD, yet also at the same time number 1 in hill time? It's crazy. Now, much like Wuskin, the same thing can kind of be applied for Octane. S&D, not the strong suit. We all know that with Seattle. Search and destroy has been a problem. The reason why Octane probably isn't higher in the MVP conversation is because of his S&D, his team search and destroy. It's obviously been a major aspect that they have to work on. It's something that he has to work on. He's currently got a 0.89 so far throughout the year. Story pretty much ends there. That's pretty much where we sit at when it comes down to search and destroy. Domination, go from a negative now to a major positive. This is the reason why I said Octane is going to be the best player in the world. If S&D improves, I don't think there's a question who it is. I really don't. Octane currently holds the number 1 KD in domination with a 1.41. He's number 1 in kills per game with 29.13. Number 1 in kills per minute at 2.91. He's also extremely high in engagements per minute at 49.75. Keeping in mind the league average is around 45. He's winning 58.5% of his gunfights, and his team, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, the particular stat that we're bringing up a lot, of his gunfights and his team, right? Whenever his teammates are involved with gunfights, they are winning them 64.3% of their gunfights. Now, I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you right now, but to put it in perspective, when Octane is on the map in domination, no team in the CDL is having a more successful gunfight win percentage with him involved than any other player in the CDL. So in no other game mode, no other team, no other player outside of Octane with Seattle on domination, there is no percentage higher of guaranteed gunfights going Seattle's way than this one, where they're winning it 64.3% of the time, which is absolutely unbelievable. This is scary, right? If this team, and this is the reason why I talk about kind of reiterating back to the first subject, the first thing that we talked about with the pressure that this team has. You have somebody like Octane who is bursting right now. He is having an unbelievable year in the CDL. And if you can put somebody alongside him, I don't see how you lose. And not that you can't lose, but I don't see how you don't improve as a roster with this team right now. I think if they can make it to top 6 or top 5, he's absolutely an MVP candidate. No question. He's already on that pace for me. I just feel like I just feel as if the Seattle ability is totally there. It's just it hasn't been reached yet. It hasn't been reached yet. The numbers in respawn so far for Octane have been unbelievable. Let's move forward. Let's go and move on to the next player. We've got Celium, right? I think this shouldn't be a question. Like I said, this is a player who's been brought up more often than not, pretty much been the primary player for a lot of people from the Atlanta phase to kind of be in the MVP conversation. He's a lot of people's current MVPs right now. Like I said, this is a guy who's been on everyone's radar. CDL Atlanta MVP, without question, one of the best players in the world. Overall KD, 1.29, by far one of the best flexes in the entire game. He's 6th highest in hardpoint KD with a 1.26. It's the 2nd highest for flex players. He's currently getting an unreal amount of kills when it comes in a hard point. He's number 1 in kills per 10 minutes, which is a stat that a lot of people want to look at for ARs versus SMGs in terms of who's actually making the overall impact. So he's actually, as a flex, getting just as many, if not more kills than SMGs on the map, with 29.9 on every hard point he plays, or rather in every 10 minutes. He's not always in the hill, but he's constantly hopping in it from time to time and winning 55.8% of his gunfights. Along with that, this is where most AR center players are going to kind of fall off, is search and destroy. Celium is one of the most consistent players in the CDL. To go along with his fantastic hardpoint stats, he has a 1.38 in search and destroy. That's 6th in the world. FaZe is looking unreal in search and destroy. Domination. Again, Celium, top 6 in the world, where he sits, rather continues to stay in the top 6 overall. He sits in domination, tied for 3rd with Wiskin at a 1.33. He's 2nd highest in kills per game on his team right now behind Simp, which is great for flex players. He's winning an unreal amount of his gunfights, which is going to be 57% of the time in his favor. And his teammates are winning those 62.2% of the time in the engagements that he's in. It's crazy how great Celium has looked, especially how consistent he has been across all 3 game modes. He's productive, he does his job, and by far a front runner for MVP. That conversation is absolutely warranted. The way that he has played is something that has to be highlighted without question. Let's go move on to our final player of our top 5 front runners right now for MVP. The last one being, and this should be coming as no surprise, GodRx, right? This is a guy, this is a player who's been called slept on so much that he no longer is, right? GodRx is no longer slept on. I'm officially ending that conversation. No longer slept on. The ultimate reason why Minnesota are where they are in the standings right now. A breakout player who has been playing pretty much just as well, if not even better, than he did at the end of Black Ops 4. Like I said, the stats are actually unbelievable, and the consistency that GodRx has had is one of the most insane things that we have seen so far throughout the year. 1.29 overall, currently sits at a 1.27 in hardpoint. He's tied with Dens for 4th in the CDL. He's averaging 28.89 kills per 10 minutes, which is 4 above average. He's very low in deaths per 10 minutes, right around 22.76. He's averaging just shy of a minute in the hill per game and holds 60.3% engage success rate, meaning every fight he's involved with, his teammates are involved with, they're walking away with it 60.3% of the time. And in hardpoint, that's very, very impressive. In search and destroy, the numbers, the stats remain the same. Search and destroy often a big game mode for a lot of different teams. For Minnesota, it's been a little bit shaky. GodRx, all the opposite. Sits firmly at 4 overall in the world with a 1.45 overall. Considering that Minnesota, the 2nd highest player in KD in search and destroy for the Rocker, is a 1. That's it. The 2nd highest player on this team has a 1. In this situation, GodRx, a 1.45. 5. He's averaging nearly a kill a round, which as an AR, as a sniper, is pretty impressive. He's also winning 84% of his first blood engagements, which isn't absurd for a sniper, but that is very consistent to see. And when he's attacking, he holds 66.67 of his first bloods, which is great. He and Asim are pretty much the only ones to plant the objective if necessary. Like I said, GodRx has been electric throughout the year in Search and Destroy as well. We'll move on to Dom. Again, GodRx sits 5th overall in the CDL at a 1.25. He's rarely dying and only on average dies 19 times per game. The only people that are competing with him on that in terms of dying not all that often, which is traditionally based off of players who aren't playing all that fast. GodRx, on the other hand, is competing with main ARs or players that are on phase collectively. And for a flex, the lack of deaths is incredibly, incredibly impressive. GodRx is pretty much the only CDL player to be in the top 5 KD of every single game mode. The only player to be in the top 5 of every single one of those. He's part of the leading, he's part of leading pretty much the great story right now with the Minnesota Rocker, who currently sit 4th in the standings. Based on team and overall impact on the map, I think it's pretty much, for me, in my eyes, if I were to have the conversation right now, I think it's between Simp and GodRx. And to be honest with you, I think my current frontrunner for MVP as of this moment is GodRx. I think that he is playing at an unreal level. He's the reason why his team is seeing so much success. He is leading a roster that not many people had hope in coming into the season. Yet he is leading this group to a top 4 finish as of this moment. And you're talking about all-star lineups like the Atlanta FaZe, like the Chicago Huntsmen, like the consistency of the Dallas Empire. He is kind of leading this team to a 4th place finish right now. Obviously, along with the contributions from what has been a great team effort. Alex, Assault, Silly, Asim, all these guys have been playing fantastic. But he is the piece that is putting them over the edge and is being consistent, especially versus top caliber teams every single time. He does not skip a beat when he faces off against the Atlanta FaZe. I think for me, whenever you look at Simp, really the entire Atlanta FaZe lineup, they're all looking great. Simp is putting up unreal numbers with the SMG, but for someone like GodRx, who majority of the time does have the AR, but for someone who is running that flex, currently, based off of stats, the best flex as of this moment, yet at the same time doesn't have that same level of someone like Simp. He does have probably the 2nd or 3rd best SMG in the world right now in Alex, but still, the numbers that he's putting up is absolutely unreal. We're getting ready to get attached on the line here in just a moment. But in the meantime, guys, feel free. Let us know in the chat. Let us know your thoughts in terms of where your MVP conversation sits, at least as of right now. Interested to hear kind of your conversation, maybe who you currently have as the MVP, the current front runner. Like I said, I know I kind of listed off my 5, maybe somewhat controversial. I know maybe a few people were kind of surprised maybe by the names a little bit in terms of, hey, where does one player sit versus another? But I think for me, GodRx is currently just who I have right now in that number 1 spot. But it looks as if we do make way for the 5-time Call of Duty champion, 2015 COD world champion, and player for the New York Subliners. Attach, thanks so much for joining us today, buddy. Like I said, I know I did some research not long ago, but I guess to ask you again, were you aware that you're still the youngest Call of Duty world champion in terms of like winning it at that particular time?
Definitely not at the time because I thought all champs would stay the same because
Yeah.
champs used to be in like Black Ops 2 and Ghost and Advanced Warfare when I won. They were in I think March, like late March, but it was like 3 months into the game, not at the end of the game, which is really weird that like the biggest tournament of the year wasn't at the end of the game. It didn't really make sense, but I mean, it's kind of impossible for me not to be the youngest at this point with the
Sure.
way the league is set up. So it's just how it is. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of new young players that become world champions again at 18, and maybe one day they'll put the champs tournament back in front of March. So we'll see.
I'm not sure how happy COD pros would be about that, but it's
Yeah.
neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
at the
it would
same
be tough.
time, it's yourself in number 1 spot, Simp number 2, Karma, Parasite, Miracles, all those guys obviously winning in
Yeah.
2013. And one thing that's interesting for me, it was when I started to go back and do a little bit of the research. You pretty much went from getting the opportunity because you were on Curse at the time. You get the opportunity to
Yeah.
play for Rise Nation. I think it was what UMG Dallas 2014.
Yes.
7 months later, just 7 months later, Call of Duty World Champion. I mean, at the time, like I said, when it comes down to it, you were 18 years, 2 months old to be specific. What was it like to
I didn't
win
even
a
know.
COD? What was it like to win a COD champs by and being that young?
I mean, it was incredible because to go from wall banging a fence just less than a year before to being a world champion was something insane. But just kept grinding, kept playing a lot of COD, working hard. Our team for that world championship event worked so hard. Like we scrimmed
Yeah,
easily the most at any other team. Like it wasn't even close. So we were just well prepared, and it's just I had all the right pieces around me to be able to do that. So we just did it. We won, and I was just super proud of everyone involved, and super thankful for everyone that gave me an opportunity to join Rise, to then join Denial, and then there was a bunch of different roster changes, and I'm glad
sure.
that I was just able to come up on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just to transition a little bit, I know with a lot of the talk that's currently going on right now in the scene, I wanted to ask you: did you kind of expect to find out the league was transitioning to online when all these announcements were starting to come out? Obviously, professional sports leagues. I mean, literally as of now, everything kind of put on hold. But at the time, were you kind of surprised to find out the league was transitioning to an online platform?
I would have been surprised if like we still were going to lands. Just when you see like those billion-dollar companies canceling their events, all their games, their seasons, like it's just
Mhm.
you kind of know that it's coming. And
Yep,
luckily, we were able to play online, which is still it's not the best, but we
mhm,
can still do it. There's still gonna be content, still gonna be matches, still gonna be stuff for people to watch. Like unfortunately, all of the sports fans can't watch their favorite sports right now, whereas the COD fans they can't watch LAN matches, but they can still watch online. So it's kind of like we're taking what we got and we're using it. So it's still good to be able to compete.
yeah, that's for sure. I feel like pretty much all the NBA scene is pretty much watching Warzone right now. They're watching all the
Yeah,
NBA players play
literally
Warzone.
everyone's watching. Yep, Warzone right now. That's the big game, which is good. I don't know. It's crazy timing that Warzone
Yeah,
dropped right as like what it seems the whole world just shut down and got put on pause.
yeah, it was definitely interesting timing, but hey, as COD people, will definitely take it.
Yep.
Um, in terms of online, are there any concerns that you kind of have about the online league that you hope to see the CDL address?
The only thing I would really be concerned about was the possibility of cheating, whether it's using some kind of hacks on a Cronist or something like that, or like a coach being able to like watch a game, be able to talk to the teammates,
Sure.
and they let them know what's going to happen. So really, only cheating and then the host booting would be like the two biggest things. That's what I'm concerned about. So hopefully we don't run into those issues. Hopefully they take steps to prevent those from happening. And if they do happen, hopefully we can find a quick fix because I mean that just ruins the competitive integrity, and that's what we play. We just play to be the best and to have fun in the matches. And if you're getting cheated against, like it's just lame and it's not fun at all.
Sure. Now, do you think that there are any benefits to your team now playing kind of until further notice in an online environment? Do you think that, the way that you guys are positioned in New York, do you think that maybe could benefit you guys in any way?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think being able to just get comfortable at our houses and just play online is really good for us.
Are you guys all in like the same like area? Like, are you guys all like around like the same vicinity of each other?
Yeah, we all live in the same building.
Oh, okay.
And then, but when we do play online, we were traveling to our office to where we practiced before,
Gotcha.
and yeah, that's what we'd be doing. But right now, all like the subways and stuff, Ubers, like going outside really isn't too safe.
Sure.
So we've just been practicing from our apartments.
Is that where you guys are going to be kind of probably playing from when it comes down to the online league in the apartments? Or is that going to be maybe something where you guys have to head over to the office? Or is that something that maybe is known yet at all?
Honestly, I don't even know when the league is happening yet. So hopefully, when it does start up, then we can play from the office and like travel and move around, and it's still safe for everyone.
Sure.
But if it's not, then we're probably just gonna have to play from our apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you know which teams that kind of all aren't in the same location? And I want to ask you, do you think that
Hmm.
maybe could hurt them at all? And like I said, we don't obviously know a whole lot about the online league as of right now, the way that things are going to be formatted, et cetera, et cetera. But kind of from what we do know, kind of in your eyes, do you think it's important for teams to be in the same location? Any rosters do you think that maybe could be hurt by that, by something that just is pretty much a matter of not being in the same area?
Yeah, I think it definitely hurts any team who just isn't in the same spot, that one location or super close to each other. But at the end of the day, it's all about people's safety because that's more important than
Sure.
video games and winning some money and championships, like being healthy. So that's priority number one. Priority number two is winning and competing in all these tournaments. So as long as people are safe and healthy and they don't have to travel, that's good. But if they can and if they already are in the one spot, they should. It's probably beneficial to be in one spot.
Talk to me a little bit about the new kid on the block, Mac Melts. What's the background on this guy?
Honestly, don't really know much background besides the fact that he got second in Minnesota. He played through
Mhm.
the amateur bracket and got second. He's playing really well there. We none of us really like talked to him before we picked him up, but we just knew he's like an 18-year-old kid, very talented, and sometimes you just gotta like pick people up like that. It happens with everyone. It happened with me, Zuma,
Yep,
Simp, Abizi, like Priesta. Like you just kind of see those players who play really well, whether they're playing against other amateurs or like pro teams, and they're 18, they're young, they're kind of like a sponge. Like you teach them a lot of stuff, and they're gonna learn
sure.
very quickly. And he's just really a really good player, really good kid. Loves listening to the weekend. But yeah, I really like teaming with him.
Now, I guess was it kind of more of a management decision rather than a particular player kind of pointing out that, hey, Mac could be a guy for the subliners?
I would say it's a mixture of both. I think some players on our team, like we recommended him because
Sure.
they were asking about options, and we just knew that Mac has been playing really well. He's been playing well online. He's been playing well at LAN. He got some good placings, and it's just one of those times where you just got to take the chance where it's probably going to work out because I would say most people that you see that are that talented end up becoming very good players, winning multiple championships throughout their
Sure.
careers. So I think it's really honestly a no-brainer to just take the risk. Like why not just pick up an 18-year-old who's been playing really well and just kind of see what you can do with him, and it's been great teaming with him so far. I think he's really helped our team improve.
Now, can we expect to see Mac Melt in the starting lineup, or is that something that's still being tweaked, still something that's kind of being decided?
No, I think Mac is definitely he's definitely gonna be a starter on the team. The whole like substitute thing right now, that's kind of just I can't really speak much on that right now because it's,
Sure.
it's in a weird spot. Like no one knows like for sure, but yeah, definitely Mac will be a starter.
So Mac pretty much ends up in this situation, if he does, right? He ends up kind of replacing, if you will, Happy. Was Happy kind of looked upon strictly as a fill-in for LA, or was there a chance that he could be possibly a starter for the future?
I was more so like a fill-in substitute thing for like that one event. And then if he did end up playing really well, then we could go and see after that. But just for that one event, that was like mainly the focus for when we picked up Happy.
Now, obviously, you guys have obviously made some moves. You aren't currently sitting where I'm sure that you want to right now in terms of the league. What do you think has kind of been the cause so far of the slow start?
Honestly, we just had a bad Minnesota. Like we just played bad there in London. We should have definitely been able to secure top four and make it the championship Sunday. Unfortunately, got reverse swept by London, which just sucks. Like you never like getting reverse swept, and especially in a series where
Sure.
it's so close and you should be able to close it out, but you choke. That definitely sucks, and I think that really hurt us. It's just like that momentum. Like if we win that, we go into Sunday. Who knows how we play on Sunday? We have the momentum behind us. We just would have beat Paris and then London in pretty dominant fashion if we could have closed out those series. It's unfortunate that we messed up in London, and then just internal issues with the team. It probably didn't help when you start losing. People can get down on themselves. People can start arguing. Whatever it may be, it's just hard to kind of bounce back after that. But I still think we could have definitely done a better job at helping each other and going into LA.
And talk to us a little bit, and I want you to, be aware, and I want you to be able to talk on it as much as you possibly can. But kind of from your perspective, what exactly took place in bringing in censor to scrimmage? Because I think a few people kind of misunderstood what was kind of taking place. But from your perspective, what was it like, kind of bringing in censor and the kind of the process behind that?
Well, we kind of looked at it as like we gave Happy Suda or Nick the chance to like play with us, get some scrims in. So it's only fair to give like the other substitute scrim time as well because it was like it wasn't a like a for sure decision like oh we just want to play with Happy. It was like we got to give Doug some time and see how he does, and that was kind of how like that went.
Gotcha. What's your favorite thing so far about Mac Melts? What's something that you think as a young guy, obviously, like you said, yourself, Zuma, a lot of other guys been given chances at a very young age. I think what Max 18, is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
I
So in
believe
that
so. Yeah.
in that situation, obviously, like I said you've been in this spot before, kind of knowing. Are you what kind of thing are you impressed with most so far about the small experience that you've had to play with him?
Of course, he's a very talented and a nice kid. He's very calm, which is like surprising. Usually, when you pick up like an 18-year-old, they're
Sure.
kind of like super hyper, super crazy. But he's just
Yeah.
very calm and kind of keeps to himself. But he's definitely comfortable with our team now and us as people. And we always just joke with each other, have a good time while we're scrimming, practicing and stuff. But yeah, he's a super quiet, calm person, which is like kind of kind of refreshing.
Sure. What I'll say this. What are your thoughts on Warzone as of right now? Are you impressed with the mode at all?
Oh, I'm super impressed. I mean, going before Warzone got released, I didn't really have that high of expectations. I was like, okay, this might just be like something that's not that fun. But
Sure.
after playing it, I was like, actually, I was genuinely shocked excuse me, how good it was. I love it. I think there could be like a few tweaks to make it better, and also dealing with all like the hackers and the aimbotting thing,
Yeah.
because I literally died to some aimbotters yesterday and spectated them, and I was just like, this is so dumb. Like, why are they able to do this? But there's definitely a few things they need to fix. But overall, the game is incredible, and I absolutely love it.
What's your take on the mouse and keyboard versus controller conversation? That was that was all over the
Oh
timeline
God.
yesterday.
I gotta watch what I say about this guy. Stepping on eggshells. What's it called? With controller, you get like aim assist, which does help a lot. But I feel like with a mouse and keyboard, you get to aim like your whole arm. How you get to have certain hotkeys as well.
Sure.
With like a controller, it might be harder to like loot stuff, pick stuff up, get in vehicles, move stuff around in your inventory, drop stuff. And I think with a controller, it's just like a little bit tougher in that aspect, but you have more freedom, I would say, with the mouse and keyboard. And some of the shots I see people hit consistently with the mouse and keyboards are just like insane. And I think it might be better to play on mouse and keyboard and PC for like the what's it called, the field of view and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Yep.
But controller versus mouse and keyboard, I really can't say which one is easier until I
Sure.
can like play consistently on a mouse and keyboard. But I would love to try it one day. But for now, I'm just sticking with the controller gang.
There you go. You answered it well. We'll leave it there. But how many wins? How many wins do you got so far in
Wins
Warzone?
so far. One second. I actually got my screen up right here. Let me check. Wins. We are at. Oh, that's multiplayer. Wins. We are at 23 so far. So
Okay.
it's decent. It's
Yeah.
decent.
Sure.
Definitely wish I could be grinding more, but of course, we got to scrim, got to practice. Not in a spot where we want to be. So I want to climb the rankings, especially with this league starting back up and put ourselves in a good spot for the rest of the season. But the Warzone grind is definitely fun to just kind of play and just take your mind
Sure.
off things after a stressful day of scrims, or just kind of it's fun to play and relax.
Absolutely. Well, one of my favorite things about you, Attach, is how involved you are on YouTube, on socials. You're one of the only pros who kind of has been consistently uploading and kind of trying to grow your fan base, not just in game but out of game as well. What do you think kind of provides that drive? What kind of is the main reason in your eyes why you think that content creation is important and why you've kind of taken a step to do that all the time?
Just from being when I was young in the community and just coming up, I saw people like Nade Shot, Scump, Olive Optic, Hector, and all those people upload YouTube videos, and you would just see like the numbers they would get on stream and YouTube, and it's like insane. And then I joined FaZe, and of course, FaZe is a huge, like the biggest organization when it comes to like the
Sure.
content on YouTube and stuff. So it's kind of just like that backing that I had from FaZe, like just going over to the house, making some fun videos, but then staying consistent with like Call of Duty videos, because of course some of the FaZe guys would play COD. They would also vlog. I don't really vlog too often, but I just wanted to upload COD content. It's fun. It kind of gives me something to do on my off time.
Sure.
Whereas like some people, or I would just like sit around and do nothing. If I didn't stream or do YouTube, I honestly don't know what I would do. So
Yeah.
it just kind of gives me something to like do, work towards, build my brand, meet new people, and then who knows what experiences it could lead to one day. But I mean, it's just super fun, and I just have a good time doing it, and it just helps me connect with a lot of people that I never would have met before. So it's great.
You think a few Call of Duty pros maybe could be missing out on that opportunity that you kind of seized to kind of create that content, what that could kind of lead to? You think a few players maybe would, or rather, kind of missing out on that opportunity, something that you've taken?
Oh, without a question. If you're not uploading content, you're just missing. You're literally just missing out. It can't hurt you, whether
Sure.
you upload a Twitter video every day, YouTube video, stream every day. Like none of those things will ever hurt you. You're actually like you're gonna make money doing that, especially when you're on like such when you're a top pro player, you're in the pro league. People want to watch you learn and see. They want to watch or learn from you to how to play Call of Duty, or they might just like you as a person. And then like you're going to build your brand, you're going to get exposure, and you never know where that can lead. So I mean, I think everyone should do it, and it's just fun sometimes too. Like if you take a trip to Hawaii or somewhere, vlog it. People might just love seeing you and your personality. So hey, maybe you have another revenue stream, or you can be something when your career is done and you'll fall in love with that. But it's all just personal preference though. Like I'm not gonna force or like be like, yo, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. Maybe if it's one of my close friends and I just want to like help them and see them succeed. But it's really fun, and I honestly just have fun doing it because when I started, I was even now like I don't even make an insane amount of money doing it, but it's just something that I'm so used to doing now, and I've just made so many friends with, like through my content, that it's just I'm just happy that I'm doing it, and I'm just gonna keep doing it until maybe one day where I don't like it, or we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's attached. Call of Duty multiple time champion, 2015 world champion player for the New York Subliners. Thank you so much for joining us this
Yeah,
evening, Attach.
thank you for having me. It was a great time, great
Absolutely.
talks. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you also to everybody as well for tuning in. We managed to cover a lot kind of throughout the broadcast today. Teams with kind of the most pressure coming into the online league, early front runners for MVP, and also had a great conversation with Attach as well. Thank you again to all of our listeners on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, etc. We very much appreciate you guys as well. Massive shout out to production again for putting on this broadcast. It's not easy in the midst of COVID-19 kind of taking place, but we really do appreciate everybody for sticking with us and for kind of hanging on during what is kind of a little bit of a difficult time. But as well, you guys can feel free later down the line if you're on YouTube to kind of mention us in the comments, ask us questions in the comments. We'd love to address those on this show, as well as maybe with some interviewees as well. But stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you again at Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. That's 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Enjoy your week. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks for watching. I love you.